Oftentimes people think that I should go to Europe and have a career as an opera singer. But that's not why I do this.
I was actually also thinking about saying that my father's in CCU today, and he's in intensive care. And it started because Friday night he gave a talk at USC because he founded the German department at USC, and he founded the Max Kade Institute for German, Austrian, Swiss Studies. And he gave a talk on the emigres, the Hollywood emigres. But so much of my artistic career is because of him. Now, he was never a very good father. In fact, he wasn't much of a father. It's like one friend described, he was more of a Cornelius than a father. But because of him, we spent every summer in Germany, Switzerland, Austria. We spent time with amazing artists like Friedrich Dürrenmatt, like Helmut Qualtinger. We were good friends with the Bundespräsident of Switzerland, like the equivalent of the president. We even would switch houses with him. Just by osmosis, I fell into German cabaret, or the Berliner niche. And I remember when I first really started listening to the songs of Friedrich Hollander was when I was 19. I was studying in Berlin. And I was at my punker stage, so it was so exciting. And then I'd go to the Mediothek at the Goethe Institute where I studied and listen to Marlene Dietrich songs. And I just sort of, I just absorbed the Marlene Dietrich songs. And then later, just coincidentally, I started getting asked to sing for the German consulate and for various concerts, and then the German cabaret repertoire just was second nature.
My name is Judy. I am Christina Linhardt's mother. As unlikely as that may seem. Well, way back at the beginning, we knew that Christy was unusual. There was something that was not quite, shall we say, hominoid about her. Her father noticed this, and when she was a baby, he would call her Creature. Well, later on, I guess we came to the conclusion that she was part forest sprite. She also had another side to her. And as a little girl, she was very focused, very determined, and self-possessed. Her German aunt said, Christy was Christy. And we had another acquaintance who we went to visit, and we took the kids along. Christy was, I don't know, maybe 3, something like that. And this woman watched Christy walk around and explore, and she said, "She's the most together little kid I've ever seen." So those were her two sides, the ethereal side and her very I think we'd have to say that her proclivity for performance was very apparent early on. And I remember one time we were in Austria. We were visiting a couple, they were big theater people in Austria. The man was the general director of 2 prominent theaters in Vienna, and his wife was one of Austria's most esteemed actresses of that era. And Christy must have been, I don't think she was yet 2. And the woman, after a while, the actress said, "That girl has the makings of an actress. She's going to be an actress." So I guess she was right. And it comes, I think Christy, I think it's in her blood. Her great-grandmother on my side of the family, my grandmother, was indeed an actress in the time when it wasn't quite the proper thing to be. And her grandmother, on the other side, Cornelius's mother, was a singer. So she has it in her blood. She came by it naturally.
My name is Dr. Bruce Eskovitz, and I was lucky enough to have produced 2 of Christina Linhardt's records. I first met Christina when I was a grad student at the University of Southern California, and I was starting to teach some of the kids privately, and Christina was introduced to me as a flute student, and at that point we started a relationship. I think we worked together for maybe a semester or 2 at that point. I don't remember if it was much more than that, but it was about that. And we had a nice rapport. And then as things happened, we kind of lost touch. And I think what happened is one of the tunes that I had written a long time ago called Latin Fever that I wrote when I was first teaching at Crossroads. Somebody who was running a band bought a copy of my arrangement and played it, and I guess Christina heard their show and heard the tune and heard my name, and then got in touch with me at that point, and we started talking about producing a record for her. She had some ideas, and we met. At the time, she had written some lyrics to some already existing tunes that were, for those of you who understand copyright law, they were already in the public domain. So because they were already probably, I think it's 75 years past the death of the composer, basically anybody can do with it as they wanted. So what Christina had very intelligently done is taken these tunes and written lyrics to them that suited her story. A very interesting person, very unique individual. What I've always enjoyed about working with Christina is she's been very clear with her picture of the final product, and then trusted me enough as the producer and arranger to give me suggestions and then allow me a certain amount of artistic license, and then we would get together and we would discuss as we were working through the tunes and what I was coming up with and if we needed to make adjustments. But I think most of the time, I think we were pretty much on the same page.
My name is Eric Vollmer, and I'm the producer and host of a program that we call Snapshots, a performance gallery drawn from the page of the stage. And our goal was to bring classic and great moments of literature to life for new audiences and encourage young writers. So I met Christina at a political rally. We were protesting George W. Bush's policies, and Christina was with a satirical street theater group called Billionaires for Bush, and she was playing a wealthy debutante, and they were mockingly supporting Bush. They were pretending to be rich, narcissistic people that could care less about the general public. And that's where the humor came in. She was quite delightful. So I recruited her for our, we did a show where we were celebrating the 1960s. And sure enough, Christina had a song that she adapted from Janis Joplin and Holding Company's. The song's called Give Me Another Little Piece of Your Heart. But somehow Christina was able to sing Give Me Another Little Piece of Your Amazon Rainforest, baby. And she made it all work. And so I realized I had a very adaptive character in Christina, and so we were able to invite her back for a German cabaret show that we did to celebrate Kurt Vonnegut. And her father, Cornelius Schnauber, came and spoke about the exiled German writers that had come to Santa Monica in the 40s that he'd written about. And then Christina was dressed as Marlene Dietrich, and she sang the cabaret songs in costume.
Start by hitting from grave to tomb. It isn't that long a stay. Life is a cabaret, oh chum. Come to the cabaret. Put down the knitting, the work and the broom. It's time for a holiday. Life is a cabaret, oh chum. Come to the cabaret. Come taste the wine, hurry the band. Come blow your horn, start celebrating. Breakfast wheel tables waiting. No use permitting some prophet of doom to wipe every smile away. Life is a cabaret, oh chum. Come to the cabaret. Should we go like a dinner? Okay, so we finish the song. Oh yes, if I can bow. Oh, I have to give the mic then to. We have to figure out how to
Right,
give the mic.
there will be somebody, do what you would normally do. Right, but Mackie will be stage left. Thank you, Christina and Christine.
The sun has fallen and it lies in blood. The moon is weaving bandages of gold. Old black swan, where are as my lover gone? Torn and tattered is my bridal gown, and my love is lost, and my love is lost. With silver needles and silver thread. Stop. No, okay, then just stop. We'll just do it to the end.
Cutting to the end.
Well, it's been a pleasure and a delight to know and work with Christina Linhardt for a few years now. I believe we met when I was staging a production of Marlowe's Dr. Faustus, and she came to auditions, and she was a slip of a girl then, we'll say, and charming and talented, and I cast her in multiple roles. And since then, we have collided, bumped into each other, flown past and around, and just, entertained each other over the time. And she is a wonderful chanteuse, actress, impresarius, and general inspiration to, I think, everybody who knows her, and I am delighted to count myself among her friends. Oh, I am nobody particularly, but I go under the pseudonym of DJ Carlisle, who used to play Christopher Marlowe at the Renaissance Pleasure Fair. And I've translated some French poetry, and I've done a scholarly edition of Marlowe's Dr. Faustus, and I wrote a book on classical music, and I raised a kid, and I'm a happy grandpa. Gosh, she had a terrific birthday party once. There was a classical pianist I knew who was there. There was a juggler and fire eater that I knew of who was there. There was a cross-dressing stripper who was there. It was just the most marvelous birthday party I've ever been to, and the music and the food and the wine and the people were all delightful and memorable, but I don't think I can share any of those particular memories with you, but it was quite a party.
Hi, my name is Kate Fredericks. I'm a native Los Angelina, and a multi-instrumentalist, mostly folk, classically trained, but my experience at the Renaissance Fair beat that out of me. The music theory really came in handy, and the music history was invaluable. And it's thanks to the Renaissance Fair that I met Christina, though I did not meet her at the Renaissance Fair. We met when a bunch of us fair yahoos were trying to help a friend make a film. We were each doing our own little specialty, and I had heard of Christina from many, many people because she's a well-known creative force in Los Angeles and abroad, as I understand. And what abroad? And I love working with Christina. We've worked quite a bit together in a vintage tiki song and dance group, a trio called the Honey-Lulus. Try to look that up on YouTube. Make sure you spell it right, Honey-Lulus, or you will end up at a stripper site and lose another hour or two.
If you like a ukulele lady like you. If you like to linger where it's shady, ukulele lady linger too. If you kiss a ukulele lady, while you promise ever to be true, and she sees another ukulele lady fool around with you, maybe she'll sigh, maybe she'll cry, maybe she'll find somebody else by and by.
Oh, the catastrophe of the first ukulele lesson. I taught Christina and our other Honey-Lulu, Gypsy Ward, some ukulele. And Christina likes to sport very long fingernails. Now you'll notice mine are shorter on this side than on this side. If you play ukulele or other strings, they need to be short over here. So we had a little ritual for Christina to cut her nails. And she got a big pair of shears. And we sang, "Bye-bye my fingernails, farewell my fingernails. Now it's over." And although Christina started out learning ukulele very quickly, and she was a very good student, but the fingernails have won. And next time you see Christina, ask to see her left hand.
My name is Greg, and I'm a recovering actor. You want to know how I met Christina? I had done a two-night production, an award-winning production at the Odyssey Theater. It was closing night, I believe. It was our party afterwards. And there's this stunning young woman who is helping herself to the hummus and crackers. She says, "You know, I helped produce this and I helped bring you in." She had to be, what, 20, 22, 23? And I'm going, do tell. She's standing there in her faux leopard skin jacket, I think. And I'm more and more impressed as time goes on that this woman is wildly creative in terms of getting involved with all kinds of things. Little did I know that she was such a talented chanteuse. That she had such a, well, I knew that she had a lovely smile. Nor did I know that she had done the Renaissance Fair. Didn't make that connection until years later. Well, let's talk about another of Christina's birthday parties up in the Hollywood Hills, when I had the unique pleasure of spanking her. And
Not so unique.
probably not. It was unique for me.
My name is Lee Beck. I'm the Artistic Director of Public Works Improvisational Theater Company. We've been doing theater in Los Angeles since 1974. And we also sponsor Voice in the Wells, which is part of our company. So I met Christina through Voice in the Well, through Eric, who was a friend of hers, and had performed with her many times in the Voice in the Well productions. Oh, Christina, she's a wonderful performer, a terrific singer. I often have her in my, I have a monthly show called Story File at Art Share in downtown in the Arts District. And I, frequently have her come and perform, sing some songs, pretty much whatever she'd like to do. She can always deliver something enjoyable. Well, that she sings sort of operatic show tunes and operatic type music.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are very proud to present our next act all the way from California. It's a real vocal virtuosity by the Gypsy Nightingale, Miss Christina Linhardt. Enjoy.
My name is Christina Linhardt, but I was born Christine Schnauber. Schnauber is my father's last name, and I took the name Linhardt when I got out of college. I first started using it as a stage name. It's a family name, actually. It's the maiden name of my German grandmother, my paternal grandmother, and she had been an opera singer and an art song singer, and then the war sort of cut off her career, and then she was stuck behind East Germany. But her father, he was a painter for Dresden porcelain. The Linhardt name came with a lot of artistic background from the Saxony region of Germany, Dresden and Leipzig, but mostly Dresden, the whole Saxon area. And I just like the name Linhardt better than Schnauber. It was easier to say. And then I legally changed my name, although the interesting thing was, legally I could change it in the United States, but my German passport wouldn't change it to Linhardt. so they gave me a Künstlername, an artist's name, but they wouldn't give me, they wouldn't allow me to legally change my name there in Germany. But it's legally changed here in the US. I grew up commuting between Los Angeles and Europe. We spent maybe 3 or 4 months every year in Europe, namely Germany, Switzerland, Austria. In Austria it was Vienna, and in Switzerland we went all around. But I especially remember Zurich. We spent a lot of time in Zurich. And even as a small child, we spent a lot of time in the red light districts of Zurich. It was called Niederdorf, and it was the old part of the city, I believe. It had all the old cobblestones. It was a pedestrian, Fußgänger. And it was not just the red light district, it was also the students' quarters and also really the artistic area of Zurich. And so I remember as a small child walking around and we'd see all the street performers, the buskers, and I was so excited when I saw somebody who was really good. And I'd ask my mom, oh, can I have some money to give them? I loved putting money, dropping money in the hat of a street performer. And there are musicians from all over the world who would come. And then you would see the adult shows being advertised, and you'd see the prostitutes, and I thought they were so beautiful with their fishnet stockings and their black leather and their lipstick. So that's what I wanted to look like. So when I was 13, I wore fishnet stockings to school every day. And I remember one year, I must have been about 6 or 7, I remember one year a Kinderzirkus came into Niederdorf, a children's circus. It was one of those that just sets up in the town square, very old Renaissance feeling, but modern circus acts. But I remember I was so inspired by the children's circus, the Kinderzirkus. And I asked my parents every night that we were free, could we go back into Niederdorf and see the Kinderzirkus? And so we would have to walk across the bridge where all the heroin addicts were, and they were shooting up. But my parents were very open about explaining that they were drug addicts, but that the Swiss government took care of them and gave them clean needles and gave them rehabilitation. So we'd walk across the bridge of the heroin addicts and then into Niederdorf, past the prostitutes, and there was the children's circus. Yes, so my father is Dr. Cornelius Schnauber, and he is a professor, a writer, an author, a playwright. His main career, I would say, is he ran the Max Kade Institute for German, Austrian, Swiss Studies under the umbrella of USC. And through that institute, he was able to bring in some of Europe's most prominent minds, writers, and authors, because the lure was it was in Los Angeles. So even though it wasn't a hugely paying job, it was very interesting for these writers to come and have a residency for 3 months. My family would put them up in Santa Monica or through the university, and then they would come and lecture at my dad's institute. And he was very involved in the emigre community. In fact, one of his most prominent books is Spaziergänger durch das Hollywood Emigranten, which is, in English, they translated it to Hollywood Haven. And he takes the reader on a journey through Los Angeles and where many of the emigres lived. People like Thomas Mann or Fritz Lang or Bertolt Brecht. And my dad brought in people from Switzerland like Friedrich Dürrenmatt, the playwright. Also, I remember Bundesrat Willy Richards. He was the president of Switzerland. He was very close with us, and we were close with his family. And so they came and visited, and then we would trade houses and stay in their houses and solo touring in Switzerland. So my dad, it was through that work that he built his career, and then later on he was given the Bundesverdienstkreuz, which is the equivalent of a knightship in Germany. And he was also given then the Erste Klasse, and then I think the Zweite Klasse, which is more the equivalent of a lordship, both in Germany and in Austria. And I think to date he is considered Germany's most decorated citizen. He's been decorated with numerous awards and accolades. We had a nice 6-course meal on a docked boat, and then there was a disco down below, and I wanted to dance. I wanted to dance in the disco, so I kept saying to my mom, ask one of the guys if they'll dance with me. And she's like, no. And I said, well, ask one of them. And Friedrich Dürrenmatt noticed I kept asking my mom, and he said, na ja, was will sie? which means, what does she want? And my mama said, sie will mit dir tanzen. She wants to dance with you. And he'd been in his cups a bit, and he said, ja, natürlich, which means yes, of course. And so up Friedrich Dürrenmatt got, and down to the disco he and I went, and we danced and boogied. I remember a couple times he fell down, and people, of course, knew who he was, because it was Switzerland. He was a known person, a famous entity. And so people came and helped him back up, and we were dancing away, and I didn't realize that it was quite the to-do there in the disco. I just wanted to dance with some guy, any man. And I was interested in singing and music. I was interested in singing, but that was not encouraged by my parents. But my older brother was a French horn player, and I was always competing with him, and he was so into classical music. He was the ultimate classical music geek. So just to compete with him and his friends, I picked up the flute. And purely out of competition mode, I got really good at it. I practiced constantly, 5 hours a day, 6 hours a day. And so during my teenage years, I was actually a flute player. And I became a pretty prominent flute player in the Junior Philharmonic and the California Symphony. And I was playing concertos and I was winning scholarships. But it wasn't exactly what I wanted to do. I was just really doing it to compete with my brother and his friends. And so then when I was 15, because I was already playing quasi-professionally, I was playing in the pit for a musical. And I said, wait a second, that's what I want to do. But at that age, I was really punk. I didn't move a lot. I just wasn't a singer and dancer at that age. So, but I said, that's what I want to do. And so I went to a music academy for high school. And I was the star flute player there, but I said, no, I want to switch. So I started taking dance lessons every day, and I started taking singing lessons. And I applied the training that I used with flute to singing so that I could actually learn how to sing. Instead of just singing with the radio, I actually applied exercises and that sort of thing. And then I eventually started working as a singer and dancer and actress.
She had an imagination right from the beginning. When she was a little girl, she was very much, this was a little older, not as an infant, but she was very much into the fairy tales, probably because we visited Europe and the forests of Germany where many of the fairy tales originated. And she would go into her closet and find costumes, and she'd put on a little red cape, and then she'd have a basket, and she'd want me to put something in it because this was her basket of good things to eat that she was going to take to her grandmother. And then she'd go out in the backyard, and we had a little shed, a little tool shed that we used as a sort of a house. And so I don't know what she was doing out there, probably reciting to herself, but she was taking a basket of good things to eat. And when she played Hansel and Gretel, that was a little hard because Hansel wasn't there, but she rose to the challenge and played both parts, I suppose. But all of a sudden she'd come into the house and say, Mommy, I'm playing Hansel and Gretel. Can you put me in the oven? So I had two ovens, a top one and a bottom one, and I'd open the oven and I'd sort of lift her and put her in the oven. It was electric, I guess. I never turned it on, but so yes, she did have an imagination. But again, if I may quote Goethe, who said, "Two souls reside within my breast." And he didn't quite mean it this way, but the other side of her personality was very down to earth and realistic. You know, I've always been amazed that she's been able to actually make a career of entertaining when so many others are having hard times. And I think maybe it's because she's versatile, that she sings opera, she sings musicals, she sings Honey-Lulus, she sings and she acts, and she does what we might call serious work with the veterans and the performance therapy with schools and older people. So she's always combined a lot of different things, and that's always made me very proud, and that she's been able to do this, and it's amazing.
like nobody I've ever met. You know, part of her is, I mean, just, you know, the way she keeps her physical stature. She looks like a little fairy princess. You know, she's, I think, always under like 98 pounds or something like that. And yet, she could probably beat up Mike Tyson. You know, I mean, there's this yin and yang with her that is so. I mean, some people's yin and yang is like, hers is this huge, like, you wouldn't expect. You would basically, well, I expect it now because I've known her a long time, but somebody who doesn't know her wouldn't expect some of the experiences she's had. She's traveled the world several times over. She knows hundreds of people in various things. She seems to, I've been invited to several parties, and very eclectic groups of people. One of my favorites was the sword swallower. You know, you don't want to cough when you're doing that. You know, I missed the naked twister part of the party, but so there's this kind of kooky, wacky, very, very creative side, but under all of that is a very, very serious artist who's very connected and tied to her craft. And I think the appreciation of craft and the hard work and editing and re-editing and working with things until you're satisfied is what makes an artist. And that's what we have with Christina as an artist.
Can you touch it or can you feel it? Can you see it when it attacks you? Can you smell it or can you taste it? Can you hear it when it covers you? Whirling towards you or sneaking behind you. You never know where it will come. One day it's with you, living beside you. You turn around and tomorrow it's gone.
So after Hamilton, I went to Hamilton Music Academy, and that's where I switched from flute to voice, to singing, dancing, etc. And then right after Hamilton, I went to Oxford. I did the British American Drama Academy, which was in conjunction with Yale University and Oxford. And I studied at Balliol Hall, and it was just beautiful. It was my first taste with real theater. And it's very, I felt that the perspective in England was different than the perspective here with theater. It was about working on your craft, and we had these wonderful British actors come and give master classes like Derek Jacobi and Fiona Shaw and Juliette Lewis and Juliette Stevenson and Kenneth Branagh, and you were in Oxford, in the town. It's just this medieval town, and there was theater happening everywhere, and so I was going to see a lot of theater. And we studied Chekhov, and we studied the Meisner technique, and we studied the classical and Shakespeare and movement and sound, all there on the lawns. So after Oxford, I then went to USC, and I double majored BFA in theater, and which is the conservatory program in theater, and double major with a bachelor in music. And I actually have to say I was pretty disappointed when I got to USC with the theater, because it was very different than the perspective in Oxford. In Oxford, it was much more of a craft. At USC, it felt more like a lot of kids who wanted to get on a commercial or something. It was much more commercial. It was less of an artistic form, I found. And so after a year at USC, I switched my BFA to theater design, and I ended up getting a minor in theater from USC with my major as a Bachelor of Music and Vocal Arts, which was basically opera.
I'm Michael Tuba Heatherton. I'm a friend of Christina Linhardt's. My background stems from life in the circus. I was on Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey after graduating from their famous Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Clown College, and toured all over the United States, 3.5 times. It was great. And I got a chance to teach over in Japan, at their clown college, Japan over there. Had a great time and settled here in Southern California, where I met Christina Linhardt with the Open Gate Theater Company. I let her know about a little group I was involved with called the Fools Guild, and she wanted to find out about that. So we went to a couple of Fools Guild parties and had a good time there. And before you know it, she was one of our first female Fool Kings, and we had a lot of fun during her reign. The Fools Guild, I believe, started out as a group of Renaissance Fair people that wanted to hang around all year. And there were parties all year. There's a Feast of Fools, of course, on April 1st, Halloween party, New Year's Eve party, and other events, depending on the Fool King who coordinates these different events. And there's like, from 300 to 700 people who drift in and out of being card-carrying fools. And participation is the big thing, setting up the parties, decorating the parties, and Christina always had some wonderful themes and wonderful input. Usually they had to do with music, and very often they had to do with taking off your clothes. It's a Tubus Interruptus Rex. King Tuba 4 of the Bucking Brass Hole was my fool's name. It was kind of a long one. I had little wooden nickels with all that on it that I would throw out to my adoring subjects. It was a fun thing. Christina was Venus Cremus, I believe, and aptly named. And what a great time. Fools Guild, fun, excitement, thrilling. Again, music and comedy and whipped cream. Oh, it's lovely. You've had whipped cream on anything. You haven't had it until you've licked it off of Venus Cremus. And we've done some events for the Shrine Children's Hospitals as clowns, magic and music and singing, and very often stuff is not rehearsed. It's just thrown together at the time, and the magic always happens. When Christina's around, there's always the inspiration. So that's great. We had a great photo session with Albany Cats, where we were 2 nude clowns, and we got to be in some various poses that were all very innocent, nothing X-rated, but just a lot of fun and really, really bizarre and really ridiculous. It was a very fun afternoon at Santa Monica College. I really have fun with Christina and our friend Aaron and our friend Jonathan is singing at Christmas time. We have a 4-person Dickensian Caroline quartet, and this year we got to perform down Pershing Square near the ice rink, and it was a lot of fun.
Happy greetings of the season, Los Angeles. We have traditions all over this great world at this time of the year. And I'd like to think of Pershing Square as one of the sweetest and one of the warmest, not only in climate, but also in the hearts and hearts of the Los Angelinos.
So I got out of college, and as most people getting out of college with a degree somewhere in the humanities or the arts, I had no idea what I was going to do. I had been working while I was in college, doing gigs, doing a little bit of theater, doing some singing, but I was almost ready to quit performing. The university tends to do that to you. And coincidentally, I was asked to assistant direct a Brecht festival through the Goethe Institute because of my association with the German community. And there I met Ron Saucy. Ron Saucy is the artistic director, the creator of the Odyssey Theater Ensemble. The Odyssey Theater has been around for over 30 years. It's probably the most prolific 99-seat theater, although they have three 99-seat theaters. And many working actors come to the Odyssey, many working actors perform at the Odyssey. And Ron and I hit it off. And so he asked me to be his assistant director. So I consider my years at the Odyssey a bit of an internship because I was producing with him. He also then promoted me to his associate producer. So we did a lot of German repertoire, a lot of Brecht. We started with Brecht on Brecht, and then he brought me in for Good Woman of Szechuan, and then I produced the West Coast premiere of Gila by Mark Bedoff, starring Phyllis Frelich. And then we did our big Greeks saga, The Greeks, where we took 10 plays and put them into 2 nights of theater. And we actually won the LA Weekly Award for that, for the production of the year. This was my plaque. Christina Linhardt is associate producer of LA Weekly Production of the Year. At the Odyssey Theater, I also produced Mark Medoff's West Coast premiere of Gila, starring Phyllis Frelich. And she is a renowned hearing-impaired actress. She originated the role of Children of Lesser God on Broadway. And in the play, she teaches a gorilla sign language. And my friend Garen Michael was playing the gorilla. And Garen and I became very good friends through this production. And one day I was on his porch at his house in Van Nuys, and he goes, "Oh, a frog." And it was a real live frog. So I picked up the frog, and I kissed it, and it hopped away. And Garen said, "Ew!" And I said, "Now my prince is going to come." And he said, "Oh yeah, that's bullshit. Let's make a bet." And I said, "Okay, in 6 months to a year, my prince is going to come." So, a couple months later, I was sitting at the kitchen table with my mom at her place, and she said, "Well, Daddy called from Germany today," because my father was over in Europe doing business. "Says he has a man for you." And I thought, great, because they were always trying to fix me up with someone wildly inappropriate. And she said, "Oh no, you'll like him, he's a prince." And turned out Prince Rudiger, who would be on the throne, but there is no throne, Prince Rudiger of Saxony came to hear one of my dad's book readings. Apparently he drove down all of Germany on a tractor. He had this thing about weird old automobile type things. And so we were going to Germany that summer, so I went with my mom and my brother and sister-in-law, and we went to Stockstadt, the town where my grandmother and aunt and uncle settled. And then we went to the Westerwald, the West Woods, and I remember driving up to his castle, his Schloss, which was just an old house in the forest, and King Rudiger came out, and he was older, he was closer to my dad's age, and there was no connection or spark, but I thought, well, still, I kissed a frog, I met a prince. So we went to his backyard, and it was beautiful. He had a wonderful spread set up, and then he said something about Daniel will get that. And I thought, who's Daniel? And then he said, Daniel, my son. And then out of the house came the most beautiful boy I'd seen. He was like a fairy almost, very pixie-like. And that was his son, Prince Daniel. And so at first Daniel, I felt like he wasn't noticing me, and I thought, why isn't he paying any attention to me? And then I thought, okay, there's a little boy who is the son of one of my Fool's Guild friends, who was 4 years old, who I thought was so cute. His name was Bucky. And Bucky didn't pay any attention to me at the parties. And then, as soon as I just let go and stopped paying attention to him, then Bucky became my boyfriend. So I said, okay, learn from the 4-year-old. So then I just let go. And then we all took a trip to a monastery nearby, and then Prince Daniel was just glued to me, because he was translating for me what the priest was saying on the tour of the monastery. Now, of course, I understood German, but I let him translate for me anyway into English. And then we came back to the house, and Daniel was going to help set up for the Kaffee and Kuchen, and everybody else was going to take a walk. My aunt and uncle and the mayor of Stockstadt was there, and the mayor of Stockstadt said to me, "You stay here." So he pretty much commanded me to stay there with Daniel, which was, he wasn't the mayor of Stockstadt for nothing. So Daniel and I helped set up the Kaffee and Kuchen with the servants or the help, and then we went by the river, and then we pretty much talked about, let's get married. So pretty much in one day decided that we would get married. So we were engaged, unofficially engaged, I would say, for a year. We would meet in Germany, and then he came here, and then we'd meet in Germany again. But that wasn't quite the right thing for me, so I left. I ran. So while I was dating Prince Daniel, I started in on my first album, which was titled Circus Sanctuary. And after I left Daniel, I finished the album. Now, like I said, I'd thrown myself into the Fool's Guild, and that year, Sandy Grin, King Carpe Caucus, was the king. And so he wanted to be discovered. Every king is discovered by the Fool's Parade. And the way he was discovered is he came out from backstage, and he was carrying me, and we were both naked on the top, and we had a blanket wrapped around us. And so that was his reveal, how he was discovered as the king at the Renaissance Fair. And so I wrote a song about that, King Fools. That was the last song on my album. So Circus Sanctuary really sums up, the title, Circus Sanctuary, sums up how I felt about the guild and about being king and about the circus. That it was the sanctuary of the circus. I saw the circus world as my sanctuary. And so on the album cover of Circus Sanctuary, there are two ex-kings, two ex-rexes. One is John Mackey and one is William Barrett. And at the time, a lot of people were naked on their album cover, from middle-aged country singers to adult contemporary to R&B. And so I was trying to make fun of it. So I was naked on my album cover, and I thought, well, I'll be naked with clowns. No one's doing that. But people still thought it was sexy, and I was trying to say it's a joke. And then I remember when Gary, King Gary of the Flying Morgans, was king, at his feast, a belly dancer got up and danced for him. And it was beautiful. It was beautiful. She was lovely, la 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 la, doing her belly dance. And then Gary, as king, got up and started dancing with her. And he was just being his little king clown self. And somebody said, wow, never belly dance with a clown, because funny always upstages sexy. And so that was a quote that I put in my album. Never belly dance with a clown, funny always upstages sexy. So that's in Circus Sanctuary, which is all about the sanctuary of the circus.
So I got involved in this program as part of the Imagination Workshop. The Imagination Workshop was created years ago, decades ago, by Margaret Ladd and Lyle Kessler. And they brought it here to the West Coast. We're under the auspices of the Neuropsychiatric Institute at UCLA, or it's now called the Semel Institute for Neuroscience. And I first heard about the program when I was just out of college, and I was working at the Odyssey Theater I was producing, and a director and an actor friend of mine told me about the program, and so I applied and auditioned and got accepted. And so you do extensive training. They want people who are professional performers, but also who have a sort of propensity for this type of work. And so my first sites were at the Neuropsychiatric Institute, working with outpatients. Then I was at the VA hospital for maybe 10 years. So I worked with veterans for about 10 years, and they got so advanced that we actually put on a play with them. But then a friend of mine who owns this facility, the Virginia House,
he said, well, would it be possible to do the program at the Virginia House? And I said, we can try. Now, it's not the same because we won't be able to do as much acting out on stage, but so we modified it to what you said.
Getting to know all about you. Getting to like you. Getting to hope that you like me. Getting to know, dear, how much I love you. Please don't take my sunshine away. Will we be happy? Will we be rich? Here's what she said to me. Hey, son.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to BYOD. I am so excited to have singer, actress, director, you name it, in the studio, Christina Linhardt, with a film called Guantanamo Circus. Stay tuned. She's performed all over the world, in our neighborhood at the House of Blues. She's opened Grand Center, Villes, all over the world. She's a circus performer as well. Christina is here with us with a film that she made with the Vampire Circus, which apparently some of the members fell out and it changed its name. But the point is they went to Guantanamo Bay. They had clearance from the FBI, the
I knew we were going to Guantanamo.
Guantanamo! Guantanamo! I've been here since a long, long time ago.
Unlock. Yeah, I had a little trepidation about it. All the ooh that you hear about Guantanamo here.
I didn't know what to expect. I was just thinking there's deadly terrorists.
Once you hear, well, there are children, that just put a new light on the whole trip.
Guantanamo Bay, a great place to raise your kids.
Her routine with the steel cones on her breasts, we're using the buzzsaw to create sparks. And she also had a steel crotch, so she could make sparks shooting out of her crotch. It wasn't exactly G-rated entertainment.
And that was one of the most amazing and surreal experiences in my life. We were kind of spending the day at the beach, our little time that we had off, and we're doing some snorkeling, and you come out of the water and you look just up to your left and you see the fence line and the building of the most notorious prison on the planet.
When I get inside the balloon and I am completely enclosed in the balloon, I write from inside the balloon. I do 5 lines, and
Absolutely, I am. Should we pick up another one? Might put that on the other side. Yeah, you're shocked here. It's got a little static on it. I don't know if that's the carpet or the other.
I'm actually winning the same award for Best Short Documentary.
Excellent. So tell us a little bit about it. If you want to just give me a finger right.
Yeah, I know it's exciting to know beforehand, so I don't have to be too nervous.
You got your speech ready. Exactly. It might be our
That's what I forgot.
Oh, no. Okay.
So it's called Guantanamo Circus, and it's a short documentary. And it's about when we went with the circus to Guantanamo Bay. And that's actually because Al Bowman wins the LA Music Awards and was bringing rock bands down to Guantanamo. And so then
we are here with Bill Blair. How are you doing, Bill?
And we didn't know what to find. There's a lot of controversy about Guantanamo. And so we kept it very non-partisan because what we saw was there were children there. And it's circus entertainers. And also for the troops, and there were a lot of
I thought you looked familiar. Tell us about the things you've been in.
They were not happy there. So we went there as the diplomatic community and the clown, or clowns without borders.
Excellent. Now, were you a clown ever in your life?
Yes, I was an opera singing clown in the circus.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you so much.
And have fun.
Thank you. That's right. Yeah.
When a sign is a
a United States Army veteran from Combat Support Company, 3rd Battalion, 68th Armored Regiment of the 8th Infantry Division, for which I served my country from 1976 to 1980. Was asked to provide entertainment for the troops in Guantanamo Bay. I took the mission, and I took it seriously because I was not getting paid, and I was a volunteer to find Hollywood entertainers who would go to Cuba and entertain our troops. And so it was. And we found a group of hardy circus performers who went, and we gave a incredible performance for 2 straight nights in Guantanamo Bay, not only for the troops, but for their families and the children who loved the show. And tonight, we present the cast of Guantanamo Circus, a group of Hollywood entertainers who went overseas to entertain our troops. This award for Documentary of the Year, Guantanamo Circus. Thank you, cast members.
Thank you so much. Making this documentary was quite a journey, quite an adventure. I want to thank everybody who worked on the film, my co-director, our editor, the people at Chainsaw and Media, City Media, and of course we could not have done this without the great Count Smokula, Smokey Miles, and Al Bowman. And I'd just like to end with a quote by Friedrich Nietzsche: "It takes chaos in the soul to create a shooting star." And there was a lot of chaos on this trip.
Well, aside from the most notorious detention center in the world, Guantanamo is a beautiful place to go, so everybody should go there.
Hello, my name is Shay Welsh, and I am a guitarist, producer, educator in the greater Los Angeles area, and actually all around the world. But I know Christina. We've actually kind of had a lot of the same friends and colleagues for a long time, but we've only actually known each other for 3 or 4 months, and then we found out we had all these other people in common. And part of that is because we both went to the University of Southern California School of Music. She was there before me, and I came after, so we didn't actually cross paths there. We just ended up with a lot of the same acquaintances through there. And then we actually met through a mutual friend, Reinhold Schwartzwald, first at a party, and then she came out to see my band play, and then from that she asked me to do a concert with her that we performed today. So this is actually our 4th performance.
Will you please help me welcome Christina Linhardt and Shay Welsh.
Smokey Miles, and I've known Christina Linhardt for many years. We met through the Fools Guild, or through some burlesque shows, or through some opera performances of hers, or I don't know how exactly. Somehow I ended up at a party with her. We've done many shows together. She's awesome. We did the Dresden Cabaret. We did burlesque shows. We've done Guantanamo. We went to Guantanamo Bay together. And she made a wonderful documentary called The Guantanamo Circus, which chronicles the famous trip of an intrepid circus, the Banfield Circus, to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. Christina is beautiful, lovely, charming, intelligent, talented, adventurous, wild. She'll go for anything. She's got a great sense of humor. She sings like a bird. She dances like an angel. And she's a great kid. Who am I? This is a question that's been posed to me, myself, and I. I am Count Smokula, all 496 years young of myself. A squeeze box playing undead from Smokesylvania, the land that never was, isn't now, and never will be. Here I am at the Hollywood of the California, trying to make my way with all the other Hollywoodites. And I say Hollywoodites as opposed to Hollywoodites, which would wash your clothes. Thank you. So the question that was posed to me is how I met Miss Linhardt. I believe it was about 1735, or maybe it was 2000 and whatever. There was some accidental occurrences of our meeting at burlesque shows and conventions and the Fools Guild. If you want to look at a fool, you would look at Christina Linhardt and myself cavorting around with the fools. This would be the definition of a fool, as well as other things. The other thing I mentioned was I believe that she's an inveterate party giver. And when she gave a party, I was there because it was party time in the Linhardt family. I've determined that the only significant art progress that has been done in the last century must be performed upon a human body, because the human body has pores. It's also very rich in other minerals, vitamins, and proteins. And the greatest of the human bodies to perform this work of art on is that of Miss Linhardt, because she possesses all the qualities needed for a medium. Not a medium rare or a well done, but a medium upon which to paint. This is her perfect alabaster skin, her intelligence, her beauty, her talent, and other qualities which make her the perfect canvas for Count Smokula to work on. Thank you.
the art is my therapy as well. What? And give up showbiz?